We've spoken about the three pieces of profitability, but we haven't had a talk about how they interact. What you're going to see in your own practice and across the board is that each different practice area and practice style is going to have different weightings towards different things. I'll give you a really easy example. Buying and selling property is generally a low revenue but high leverage and high productivity field. What do I mean by that? I mean that in order to maintain a profitable practice in that sort of field, buying and selling just normal residential property, you have low fees because it's such a competitive area, and it's generally considered as a fairly low skilled area, rightly or wrongly. That's the perception. So what you need to do is you need to have a high volume of matters settling and getting billed and paid, and you need to be able to keep your costs right down. That's why most of the work done on those files is done using technology or is done using lower paid staff members like paralegals perhaps, or secretaries or law clerks, because they can do the work effectively and well. You don't necessarily require a law degree in order to do that work, although in many jurisdictions it needs to be supervised by a lawyer, but they don't need to do everything. So that is how you would go about ensuring profitability in a practice that requires high volume but doesn't need the kind of skill level that something else might require. Take another example though. Complex litigation. You need a high degree of expertise. That means you're going to be using senior, experienced lawyers in order to deliver a lot of the strategic decision making and oversight for a job. You might use more junior lawyers, but you've got a bigger team. What you don't have is the same file velocity. Okay, it might be the case that you have less files per person. It might even be one or two. It's very, very large litigation. And people spend literally months or years on those files. That means also from a revenue perspective, unless there's a special reason, like it's a personal injuries, no win, no fee sort of situation, you're going to be billing monthly or at stages, because you cannot wait 2 years if you're committing hundreds of thousands of dollars of resources to a file. You cannot necessarily wait years and years before issuing a bill right at the end. And of course the risks are very high that if your client loses, they won't pay you because they'll be upset. So you need to manage that differently. You have a tendency to have less leverage because more highly trained staff are required, but you also have a tendency to have lower productivity in the sense that you don't have the same file velocity. You might be doing many things, but often it's head scratching and strategic decision making and client meetings and wading through documents. And from a productivity perspective, that can be a little bit mind numbing, but is probably necessary. So it's a different approach. You can see the revenue might be very high, the file velocity is very low, and the leverage is fairly low, depending on how you approach it. These are the weightings that you can see. So what I want you to do is have a look around, or have even just a think. If you're not employed at the moment, have a think about the different practice areas and consider what are the different weightings going to be. Generally, productivity is always important, and it's going to be the revenue leverage balance that's going to go up and down and left and right and back and forth. But maybe productivity is less important and things can sort of hum along nicely. But these are the levers that you pull in varying different degrees. You can't run a conveyancing practice with 6 principal level lawyers all wanting to draw $750,000 a year but only charge $75 per file. It's not going to work. It's not. You can't do it. If you can do it, leave a comment and let me know. But it's very hard to do. So you need to consider the balance. That's your homework. Jot down some notes, make some observations, see how these pieces of profitability are actually functioning in different areas, either within your firm or just based upon what you know about different practice areas. The goal is not to come up with 100% correct answers here. The goal is to get you thinking about how those pieces interact with each other.